Printing your own business cards can make an impactful first impression. Not only is it more personable, but it's also a small example of your skill as a printer. It is pretty easy to get a couple hundred business cards printed up nowadays, but a way you can set yourself apart from other businesses is printing your own. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, hit the red button below. It helps us make more great content for this channel. Since business cards have fine detail and important small print, there's a few things I'm going to use to retain as much detail as possible. When printing on paper, it's best to avoid laying down too much ink. So I'll be using a screen with a mesh count of 200 or higher. Since paper printing requires water-based ink, I need an emulsion that's water resistant, like base layer long lasting or base layer complete. Which emulsion you choose depends on your exposure unit, which you can learn more about in this blog. Look for paper in the 100 to 150 pound weight range. I was able to find this jet black 100 weight paper. I would prefer it to be a bit thicker, but it'll do just fine. For this job, I'm going to be using Comet White and Galactic Gold Green Galaxy water-based ink. I also grabbed a nice sharp 70 durometer squeegee. A high durometer squeegee lays a thinner ink deposit, which will help hold the fine detail that I need to keep. If you're familiar with poster printing, you've probably seen a vacuum platen like this before. Think of this as a reverse air hockey table. It uses suction to act as the platen adhesive. While a vacuum platen is the best way to keep the paper from sticking to the screen while you're printing, you can still get away with using a few drops of water-based adhesive on a normal platen. The downside is you could distort the paper or risk tearing your paper. I use a vacuum platen mostly for heat transfers. If you want to check out that process, it's linked below. But since I have it, it comes in really handy for other projects like this or poster printing. For both normal platens and vacuum platens, use a jig so the paper lays down in the same spot each time you put down a new sheet of paper. Use something strong enough to lock in that paper placement, but thin enough so it doesn't affect your print stroke. I got my vacuum platen hooked up, registered my design, and I have my ink ready. But before I put the ink in my screen, I'm going to add some warp drive, a low cure additive to the ink. I want to be able to air dry these cards because heat will warp the paper. So adding warp drive will chemically cure this ink while air drying over a 48-hour period. This stuff will dry on the screen quickly, so it's extremely important to keep the screen flooded and moist. Spray it with a little bit of water if it does dry in the screen. Then do a few print strokes to clear out the stencil. I'm going to print the gold lightning bolt first, let it air dry, and then print the white screen. Let's get printing and see how they turn out. A couple things I learned from this as I was printing. One was that the Galactic Gold was less than opaque for what I was doing here, so I had to take it out and add a little white to that Galactic Gold to make it opaque and stand up on the paper. If I was to do this again tomorrow, I would start probably with a custom mix just from the beginning with a little more opacity, and I would do that with the Fusion system. One thing that was really cool about this is the Comet White is nice and opaque. It laid on top really well, held nice detail, and came out really opaque on this black paper. The other thing that I learned was paper does not like it when you do more than one pass. It starts to smear the ink a little bit because there's nowhere for the ink to go. So one pass is optimum. Other than that, not bad. It was actually pretty fun and registered a lot easier than I imagined. Once the ink is dry on these, I can take them to cut. If I really am concerned with stacking them on top of each other, I'm going to give them a little longer cure, that full 48 hours, and let the warp drive do its work to get a full cure. Sometimes creating something yourself can set you apart from the competition. If you've tried printing business cards after watching this video, tag us on Instagram and Twitter. Let us know how it came out. If you have any tips to make this process even better, let us know in the comments. Like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.